Gallipoli Centenary commemoration starts with peace summit. Thousands gather to remember the fallen at Gallipoli Centenary, Istanbul. Today's Zaman with Reuters Commemorations to remember the fallen for the Gallipoli Centenary began with several events in Istanbul, including a peace summit that brought together distinguished world-renowned historians and diplomats to discuss World War I and its implications for world history and peace. Ambassador Altay Cengizer, Director General for Political Planning at the Foreign Ministry, acted as moderator in an academic panel on World War I on its 100th anniversary, while leading historians and diplomats discussed the war and its development. Professor Christopher Clark, from the University of Cambridge, Professor Şükrü Hanioğlu, from Princeton University, Thorbjorn Jagland, Secretary General of the Council of Europe, Professor Margaret MacMillan, from Oxford University, Associate Professor Michael A. Reynolds, from Princeton University, and Professor Sir Hew Strachan, from Oxford University, joined the panel as speakers. Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott arrived in Turkey on Wednesday while New Zealand Prime Minister John Key landed on Thursday. Both leaders met with Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu and discussed bilateral relations. On the sidelines of the peace summit, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Avulu also held meetings with foreign diplomats. Meanwhile, thousands of Australians, New Zealanders, and Turks gathered on Turkey's Gallipoli Peninsula ahead of the 100th anniversary of one of the bloodiest battles of World War I. Security was especially tight as the former adversaries now face a common threat from Islamist militant violence. A century ago, thousands of soldiers from the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, ANZAC, struggled ashore on a narrow beach at Gallipoli at the start of an ill-fated campaign that would claim more than 130,000 lives. The area has become a site of pilgrimage for visitors who honor their nation's fallen in graveyards halfway around the world on Anzac Day every April 25. The centenary is expected to see the largest ever commemoration, with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, New Zealand Prime Minister John Key and Britain's Prince Charles leading the ceremonies. The 100th anniversary is a very important moment because we're at a time now where this campaign ceases to be about memory and slides into history, said Bruce Skates, Chair of History and Australian Studies at Melbourne's Monash University. All of the veterans have died, those with any living memory of the Great War have gone, said Skates, the grandson of a Gallipoli veteran who has been advising the Australian government on how to mark the centenary. Turkey and Australia now find themselves allies in a modern-day struggle. Australian police on Saturday foiled what they said was an attack inspired by the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, ISIL, planned at an event to mark the centenary, a holiday in Australia and New Zealand. Australia, which backs the United States and its action against ISIL, Daesh, militants in Syria and Iraq, has been on heightened alert for attacks by homegrown radicals since last year. Turkey, which borders Syria and Iraq and has been a major transit route for foreign fighters headed there, is also on alert. It's good that we're now exchanging information at a very deep level between our various agencies because the threat posed by violent extremism, particularly by the Daesh death cult, is real and it is global, Abbott told a joint news conference with Prime Minister Davutoglu on Wednesday. Reconciliation. Turks mark what they call the Battle of Çanakkale on March 18, when Ottoman forces repelled an Allied assault on the Dardanelles Straits. The victory stopped the Allies from taking Istanbul but resulted in an 8-month standoff. Some 130,000 soldiers perished, 87,000 of them from the Ottoman side, before the Turks, under German command, repulsed an Allied campaign hampered by poor planning. For the thousands gathering at Gallipoli, the overriding message was one of reconciliation. Skates was visiting graveyards with Halo Koc, the descendant of a Turkish soldier who fought the Anzac forces. I was accompanying my grandfather in 1990 and we couldn't convince him to hold an Australian veteran's hand. But today, I can visit Turkish and Australian graveyards with the grandson of an Australian veteran as we walk arm in arm, Koc said.